are you? Are you here to see how I made this cutting board? Well, if you're interested, stay tuned. I made it out of scraps, junk laying around the shop, then turned it into big picks for coasters. Nice little kit. Sell it online. If somebody wants to buy this stuff, I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. Stay tuned. You'll at least see how I made it. So I started with the scraps I had left over from previous cutting board projects. It's for my mom for Christmas. Didn't quite have what I needed to make a good pattern. Fiddled with them. Added some pieces. Did some bad calculations. Decided I needed some more. I had some Padauk and maple left over. I set this all to 1 3/8. Once I had the saw all set up, I started ripping the boards down to the widths I determined I needed. That was also Peruvian walnut I was using in there. So I planned on using the maple strip for a piece I was missing for the pattern. So I took that piece and cut it down to readjust the height. And then I trimmed the walnut and the Padauk down to thinner strips that I was planning on putting in as accents. Once I had everything ripped to the proper widths and heights, I got the anchor out and I set it up to 24 inches and I cut everything to the appropriate length. At this point I had the board laid out on the table behind me, which is actually my CNC, and I just went down them one by one and nipped them all to the same size. Not completely necessary at this point, but it makes the glue up a little easier if everything's the same length. The entire time I keep everything on that piece of masonite just so I can move it around the shop and keep it all organized and not get it mixed up. Have a brain fart, do it wrong, which I've been known to do before. Now that I had everything cut up, I finally have the final pattern here, as you can see. Looks kind of cool. Nothing fancy, just a bunch of boards. So I started to glue up. I pulled out the thin strips from the pattern just to make it easier to glue everything up, as then everything would be the same height. I use a roller, regular paint roller, to spread out the glue. Works good for me. Once everything's glued up, I flip them up and clamp them up. Glue up number 1, completed. Day 2 of the board begins with a little bit of work on the joiner. The joiner was slightly undersized for this project, but I just flip it. It makes a little rabbit on the one side, so I chuck it up on the bench and do it old school. Get out the hand plane, break a sweat. It's good for the soul. No power. Didn't get sweaty, so it's time to bring out the power tools again. I go down the board and check the thickness with a caliper just to see where to set my planer to start. Use that as a benchmark. And then I always use the Identicut on the planer to double check myself. I found with the rigid planer, if you don't take any more than the 16th off at a time, you're pretty good with chip out or blowout or anything like that. Now for glue up number 2. I did separate the board at first so I could just get it through the planer. So from here on out, there will be no planer anymore in the project because it doesn't fit. Day 3 of this board starts off with taking it out of the clamps, getting it back over the table saw, trimming the edges flush to what I thought would be the final length. As I mentioned before, no more planer, so we'll hand work again, get the heart rate up. Maybe I should actually do real exercise, not just this. It'd be better for my body. Now we begin every woodworker's favorite part of the process, sanding. Stepping it up through the grits. I start with 80, as I didn't run it through the planer. If I'd gone through the planer, I'd probably start off in the 120, then go to 120, then 240. That's about as far as I go. It's pretty smooth for me. So halfway through the build, I was sanding. And from my workbench here, I have a nice view of the pile of scraps left over from all the projects I've ever done down here. And sitting right up on top of the thing is the guitar. This old Ibanez guitar that I took apart years ago. I was going to sand it down, repaint it, make it look all cool. It's another one of those projects that, you know, I've never finished. Who else has one of those out there? Or 2, or 3, or 4, or 5? Seems to be a way of the workshop, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, this old thing was looking at the cutting board. And I was like, instead of making another boring cutting board, why don't I make up a template over on the CNC of a Les Paul and trim the cutting board to match. So that's what I did. Just a little montage of it. Check it out. Now that all the template routing is complete, I took her over to the oscillating spindle sander and gave it a good edge sanding. This piece just happened to be just the right size for this. It'll come in good handy when I decide to finally get around to building a guitar. Once completed with the edge sanding, I chucked in a 3/8 roundover bit to the router table. Set it a little low because I didn't want the full 3/8. Went around and rounded it off. Nothing too fancy. Back to our favorite process of sanding by hand. Spared you all the rest of the footage. Just get right to it. Little spritz, raise the grain, sand it again, and then on to the best part, putting on the finish. Just gonna use a standard mineral oil finish on this. Food safe. Slow it down. That was fun. So the grain really popped good on that maple. Got a little curly on the back end. Everything looked great. Wiped it on. Let it sit for a little bit. Wiped off the extra. Let it dry. Here I am marking out for some feet. Some people put feet on the board, some people don't. I'm a feet guy. I like them. I think they stick to the granite or the marble countertops better with a little rubber there. Took my time marking these out, thinking about where the pressure points would be. A little difficult seeing with the whole guitar shape instead of just your standard square rectangle. Use the center punch to mark the holes so we didn't have any bit wander. Then I countersink them a little bit with a Forstner bit so that the board isn't raised up off the ground. A whole 1/2 inch. As you can see, I use a little Sharpie mark on the drill there so I don't go too deep. And moving forward, I'll use a drill guide because I can tell the thing's crooked on the video. Didn't notice it in person though. Always use a hand driver to put the little screws in. And there she is. 2 more little screws. And folks, that's a wrap. I'm drinking a cold one right now. Hope you are the same. So, there it is, folks. All finished up, sanded, finished. Little feets, coasters. Very cool, eh? Hope you liked it. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, like and subscribe. I'm hoping to make more of these in the future. Keep them coming. If you didn't like it, then carry on, and you probably didn't make it this far anyway. So, hope to see you on the next one. Thanks for tuning in.